keep smiling, keep shining, knowing you can always count on me. For sure, that's what friends are for. In good times, in bad times, I'll be on your side forevermore. That's what friends are for. Take it away, Sav.
I can't sing it like you, so
I can't sing it at all. Anyway, welcome everybody to the Sabby and Jaybe show on Revolutionary Blackout Network. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. I am one of your hosts, Sabby Sav, my sister from another mister. How you doing today?
What's going on, Jaybe? I'm excited for this discussion today. I think it is long overdue and well needed because a lot of people now are looking for solutions, particularly outside of electoral politics. So I'm excited for this discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Very necessary indeed. Just to let you guys know that the Revolutionary Blackout Network, Sabby Sabs and Jaybe show is every single Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and give a like to the stream. This helps push us out into the algorithm. We are heavily suppressed on this channel, especially on this platform. So please make sure to do that as well. And if you have not already, you guys can also subscribe to our Substack at revolutionaryblackout.substack.com. This gives you email notifications whenever we go live. And if you have any inquiries or want to send us any stories, you guys can always go to revolutionaryblackout@outlook.com if you would like to get in contact with us. So thank you very much for that there. Now, as per usual, because we have guests, we want to be very respectful of their time. And I'm going to say a blanket hello to everybody that's in the chat, that's watching on YouTube, Twitter, Rumble, and Rockfin. Good to see all of you here today. But why are we here today? It's a very important and timely subject, as Sabby eloquently stated. We're going to be talking about general strike. Are you ready? And of course, our friends and comrades are joining in on this. Of course, we have our sister from another mister, Afeni Evans, is joining us, activist, organizer, and always got her face beat because she is the best. And then homie of homies, we got Krista Smalls, also part of the Amazon Labor Union, one of the co-founders of the Amazon Labor Union, joining us right now. Good to have you guys here. And thank you so much for coming back.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Definitely. All right. So one of the things that you guys are actually going to be talking about, and let me share my screen really quick because I think this is important, is you guys want to talk about a general strike. Now, back in the day, those of us at RBN, the people who really know, those of us who really know, we actually had a general strike summit back then. And so, we talked about a general strike.
About 3 years ago.
Sorry?
I think it's been about 3 years ago.
Yeah. Wow, time really flew by, didn't it?
Afeni saying like about 4 years ago.
It's been 3.5, somewhere around there. But one of the things that, Afeni, it's been that long. Can you believe it? But we talked about the need for a general strike, and we got a lot of flack for it. But I feel like we're kind of ahead of the curve in that way, and so it needs to be repeated again. And I love the fact that you, Chris, are also spearheading this as well. Now, you have also had discussions with different people over the last few months, through a town hall. But now you're going into this with Afeni, a general hall town strike. Now, my first question is to both of you. Why is a general strike necessary in your opinion? And what steps are necessary in order for us to achieve this tactic to get more power in the hands of the working class?
I'll take it. Sure. Thanks, sis. Great question. Well, we long overdue, as y'all mentioned, This country has been divided for a very long time. These past elections just confirm that. I don't think it really didn't move people who was already radicalized. You know, we already knew the issues. We already been in the streets. We've been in the streets probably, most of us here have been in the streets probably before even George Floyd and the pandemic. But the pandemic really was an eye-opener for the working class. Who's really going to save us? And it showed us right in front of our faces. These politicians don't care about anything but profits. Corporations don't care about anything but profits. And of course, billionaires don't care anything about people but profits. So now this new administration, it's no surprise they're surrounded by billionaires. You know, we got Vice President Elon Musk. It's not the Vice President J.D. Vance is not a thing. Elon Musk is our vice president, everybody, and he's a billionaire. And not only that, the scary thing is these billionaires used to be competitors. Talk about Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg. Now they frenemies, and now they all riding the Trump wave. So they're working together. They're organizing in that sense. And the only power as the working class that we have to protect ourselves against the oligarchy is our labor. Jeff Bezos can't go to a warehouse. Elon can't build Tesla cars. You know, Mark Zuckerberg and his tech bros, they can't move without the people. And if we realize that withholding our labor is our ultimate power, this is the only way we're going to get real systemic change in our country. And to answer the second part of your question is, how do we get there? Number one, we got to hold our elected officials accountable. The ones that's been in office for decades. You know, people are acting like these people just popped up. Some of these politicians have been around for decades. Some of them been around for multiple years. We've seen what they've done and what they haven't done in recent times. And accountability also goes to the labor movement. In America, the unions also have played the part in selling the working class out. Major unions endorse these politicians every year, every election cycle, without even getting anything in return. There's been a time right now where you saw these victories: Amazon workers, Starbucks workers, Trader Joe's, Apple workers, Google. The list goes on and on. All these strikes in the past recent years, but there hasn't been any federal laws changed or touched. And then you have the former president, Joe Biden, who used a railroad strike act from 1945, not from 2025, from 1945. We haven't touched these labor laws in this country in decades. So not only has the politicians and elected officials been selling us out, but these unions who endorse them, who endorse Kamala, who endorsed Joe Biden when he was trying to run, they're not getting anything in return. And because of that, we're in a situation where union density in this country is in the gutter. Less than 6% in the private sector, less than 10% in the public sector. So when we're talking about a general strike, we're not talking to a lot of people. And that's the problem that we have here.
Yeah, I would also add that, you know, in a moment where we're seeing our politicians' priorities, they are prioritizing bombs that are killing children and paying for that with your tax dollars instead of paying for your health care. Instead of giving DC its full funding, they're deciding to try to strip $1 billion from DC into these budgets to go ahead and bomb children in another country with your tax dollars. I really want people to understand that this isn't well, it is a precedent moment in some ways in world history. We have seen authoritarian. Y'all can't hear me.
Sorry, I'm muted. So the audio is sounds a little bit faint, a little bit far away.
All right, hold on.
Yeah, sure. While she's doing that, a lot of, as far as the need for a general strike, actually, you know what? Sabs, why do you think that we need a general strike in your personal opinion?
Because I just don't really think we're going to be able to get some of these things accomplished through via electoral politics, because we've been trying multiple times. But if billionaires own the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, how are we going to get past that, right? Like, because it's Elon Musk right now, and I think he's putting a lot of things on Front Street. But the reality is, like, both of these parties have been working with billionaires for decades. And that's pretty much how we got here. So I think that, and when we talked about this like 3.5 years ago at the General Strike Summit, we brought on people who were, union organizers who have been through it in the labor field, and people who tried to unionize, but they were shut down by managers. A number of people, we talked to people from Starbucks, we talked to people from obviously like Amazon, and even when it comes to media, we talked about this as well, that like all of the restrictions that's been put on independent media, not necessarily corporate media, we've seen it as well, right? So what Chris mentioned about the union leaders, I think that's incredibly important, because if the union leaders are willing to sell out labor to endorse these said politicians, and by the way, some of these unions are paid to give an endorsement. I don't know if everybody knows that, but if they're willing to do that, then we're not going to get it through the unions, right? Like, and Jaybe, you and I have talked about this before, right? And I even press for worker cooperatives, right? Like, I always tell people unionizing should be the first step, but the end game should be worker co-ops. Like, that's one of the things I really push for. But all these people are bought off, man. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, all these people are bought off. People are just giving away endorsements and getting nothing in return for the working class, for people's labor. And now you see, under this administration, a lot of people have been laid off because of the DOGE cuts, right? So where are those people going to go get jobs? I mean, it's just things like that. But I really do feel like, because the opposition, or the supposed opposition to the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, is also in bed with the billionaire class, I just don't think it can get done that way.
Yeah. Afeni, can you please finish your thought? We really want to hear it.
Okay. Sorry. Can y'all hear me better now?
Yes, much better.
Okay. Sorry. I'm not even gonna lie to y'all. All them years of protest that messed up my little earshot. I can't hear nothing. So them headphones be helping me like clearly hear stuff. So if I say huh, or if I look like I didn't hear you, I probably ain't. My bad. So what I was basically saying is, like, we're in a unique moment where the needs of the people are being completely neglected by our federal government, and it is more clear than it has been than ever. We all know, in this chat, on this call, we all know that America has been a fascist country. America has been an authoritarian country, but their authoritarianism was underlying. There was still a soft power and a humanity that was overlaid that Americans could attach themselves to say, like, well, this is the reason why we are exceptional. Because yes, we might have the biggest war powers in the world, the biggest financial powers in the world, and we might have a little bit of wealth inequality, but at least we live in America. And that was the hat that some people are hanging their hat on. That was the hook that some people are hanging their hat on. And now, especially, working directly within like the DC organizing space, we're doing some, I can't completely describe it on this unsecure, very public line, but we are doing some organizing to protect DC autonomy, and talking to different unions, and talking to also fired federal workers, talking to people who have been in the non-profit industrial complex, who might not necessarily have been politicized to the point of actually doing civil disobedience. And we're seeing a rapid growth of people that are being enlightened to the thought of having to take more extreme measures to stop the brutality, to stop the authoritarianism that we are seeing in our country, and especially the ways that it affects DC, because we are not a state. We are, I feel like, uniquely positioned because of our proximity and also because of our lack of statehood, to fight for the country as a whole and to fight for national politics as well. So seeing that gives me a little bit of hope that talking about a larger general strike can be possible. It's giving me I don't know, like this is like my organizer and like strategy brain moving, but it's giving me hope that because people are becoming more and more uncomfortable, their discomfort is being disrupted, that they will have no choice but to be like the rest of us and to be activated by that. If people are getting kicked off their Medicare, their Medicaid, their Social Security, right now, Social Security, they're saying that Social Security, there's a problem with the online system and people can't get into a phone call to get on the line with anybody either. You go to the Social Security office, the lines are out of the door. People cannot get access to Social Security. That voter base, if there is any demographic that is keeping electoral politics alive, it is that older group of AARP members. And if those folks are being politicized against the federal government, if those folks are being politicized into thinking about more radical thought, thinking past even the two-party system, there is an opening for us to get a general strike. I will say that, it is so fun to have these conversations online and all that good stuff. It is so good and fun. But if you actually want to have a general strike, the best thing you can do, the people that are watching this call, is get to know your neighbors. Start there. What are your neighbors' names? If you don't know your neighbors' names and your neighbors' children's names, you're probably not getting there yet. We're probably not getting to the general strike if you don't even know who you're in a relationship with. What kind of resources do you have in your neighborhood? Start mapping that, because those are the conversations that we need to have at this point. It is past us theorizing about what it looks like to do a general strike. And now it is the time for all of us to get the courage to actually step outside and strike the general. Yes, yes.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I was muted. But I want to say this real quick. And please forgive me, but I got to say this. And Chris, I think you'll back me up on this, bro. This is why we need to listen to our Black women. Because a lot of times what ends up happening is they see through multiple angles what the issue is going through in this country, even more than some of us that may have a little bit more privilege. We may not have all of it, but we may have a little bit more. And this is one of the reasons why. So I just want to give my flowers to my sisters because that. But another point, and I feel like a general strike is the final peaceful resort that we have against this country before anything else pops off. So if you are one of those people that does not want any type of resistance, that I'm trying to say the word, but if you don't want to have any resistance that is forceful, then you're going to want to support a general strike. And you're going to do every single thing in order to facilitate that by doing the things like both Chris and Afeni have said. Things like getting to know your neighbors, right? What are you doing as far as mutual aid in your communities, right? Do you have property? Can you start growing food? Do you have your own property? Can you start having chickens, right? Do you know of different things and ways in which, do you know plumbing? Can you start helping out your neighbors in that way? Do you know how to fix cars? Do you know how to help out your neighbors in that way? Is there things that you can do in order to help? Because one of my biggest things that a lot of times people talk about general strike, but one of the things that I think, and maybe you can help me out with this, Chris, is I feel like a general strike, it has to be coupled with mutual aid. Because we can't expect workers to stop without having something to supplement their material needs in the meantime. So if we can talk about that as well, because people will say, well, yeah, stop, working. But it's like, once you stop working, then what also stops is the pay. So what is the contingency for something like that, if both you and Afeni can talk about that too.
Yeah, sure. I mean, a one word answer would be socialism. But to elaborate more, for sure, you definitely need mutual aid. But you already elaborated on it. What are the skill sets of the working class? We all have different skill sets. We all bring something to the table. They say it takes a village to raise a child, right? So if we all bringing something to the table, money is just material. I've been unemployed for the last 5 years, y'all. Even founding and creating a union, still unemployed till this day. It's not about just having money. It's about having a good support network, like Afeni touched on, and knowing your neighbors. I'm able to do the work that I'm able to do because the people around me, they uplift the work. They uplift myself when I'm down. They're there for me whenever I need. They show up for me. They do beyond things beyond that people cannot even fathom. For me, just for me, knowing that they have a role to play. There's roles, there's leaders and there's activists, and leaders' job is to activate the activists. And once again, that doesn't mean that everybody has to be either or both. If you're an activist, get active. If you're a leader, you got to lead by example. And when you're organizing, you have to sacrifice something. We all here right now because we're sacrificing time away from even the work, even whether it's on the ground, whether it's away from a project, but we're sacrificing our time to plant the seeds in those who are watching this chat and this live stream. And when I was organizing against Amazon, I sacrificed the time away from my own children, as a single parent, knowing that, my kids are 12 years old. They may not understand what the hell I'm doing right now, but 5 years from now, or even now in middle school, they're starting to learn about labor. The teachers are in unions. I've been able to do some tours at elementary schools and beyond, but at a younger age, we're getting to them, and that's a big piece to how we educate people on labor, on how we can get to a general strike. A lot of people don't even know their rights. They go to a job, they get hired, they don't even know their workers' rights. They don't even know they have rights with or without a union. You just get a job because you want to get that money, and you get a check to check. You're not thinking about what's going to happen if the job fired me until it happens. And that's a lot of things. That's the problem with America. We're retroactive instead of being proactive. So this right here, this is being proactive. We're educating y'all on why we need a general strike, but how we get there is up to everybody as an individual, what they're willing to sacrifice and what they're willing to contribute to the movement. Because we don't really need money. If everybody brought their skill sets and their resources, we'll be just fine. And I can promise you, if we shut shit down in this country, the billionaires is coming to the table in one day. It'll only be a one-day strike in America. Imagine Amazon not being able to deliver your packages for one day. We're talking 2 million workers. We're talking 2 million. The Teamsters Union, 1.5 million. UAW, 1 million. So these major unions, once again, with their millions of members or hundreds of thousands of members, if they stopped endorsing these politicians, attached themselves to grassroots movements, we got mutual aid instantly. Because right now, I can tell you right now, the Teamsters alone got $350 million in strike funds, just piling up. The same thing with the UAW, the same thing with the AFL-CIO, the same thing with SEIU. All these major unions got millions of dollars of strike funds. But you know what they'd rather do? Instead of saying, you know what, let's give this mutual aid to grassroots organizing, we'll give it to these politicians and endorse their campaigns. And that's another issue, that we have to address.
And that's a big part of the problem, Chris. Something I wanted to ask, you and Afeni. There was a tweet from you, Chris, on Twitter, and you were talking about this movement that Bernie Sanders and now I guess AOC has joined him in this oligarchy tour across the country. And I think you brought up a really good point when you said that this movement that Bernie is doing is to funnel people right back into the Democratic Party. And I want to hear from both of you a little bit about that, because as long as people, to Chris's point, as long as people are donating their money to these, duopoly like candidates and putting their money into these corporate parties, that money is not being put into the grassroots. And I think that's what people really have to understand. These people raised a lot of money. Kamala Harris raised billions of dollars, ladies and gentlemen. And then I'm thinking about all the people that are struggling to pay for groceries right now. I'm thinking about all the people that are struggling to pay for rent. So all these people are getting together and they're putting their money towards a candidate who obviously did not win. But besides the point, like, the grassroots should come first. And I think that that's a big part of the criticism that I have for the Bernie oligarchy tour. It's not because he's talking about the oligarchy, it's because he's talking about the oligarchy, but he's not talking about the fact that that same oligarchy is within the Democratic Party. So when you say you're fighting against the oligarchy, you're not really. You're only fighting against the oligarchy on the Republican side, because you're still telling people to vote for the Democratic Party. But I want to hear a little bit more about that from you, Chris.
Yeah, they'll tell you we're fighting oligarchy, but we're gonna have billionaire Oprah come sit down with Kamala and tell y'all that everything is joyful, and we're gonna bring out billionaire Cardi B and tell you that everything is ratchet and fine, and then we're gonna bring out billionaire Beyonce to top it off, to make sure that we pay her $10 million of our tax funds so that she can come talk for 4 minutes. These are facts. Bernie's been around. He's 83 years old. So let's just fathom that they're doing this to run in 2028. He's going to be what, 87? So we're talking about another Joe Biden. We're talking about another Joe Biden in office, and he may have more cognitive sense than Joe Biden, of course, obviously, but still, why do we continue to vote these dinosaurs? They all be croaking on camera. They be stroking on camera. They be freezing on camera. If you look at the DNC convention or the RNC convention and just pan the camera view, everybody in there should be in a retirement home and are on their way out. Why haven't these politicians passed the torch? So we're talking about AOC too. AOC, right? The youngest Latina in Congress. Whoop-de-doo, right? Now, what is she going to do for us? Because as far as I can remember, everything that we asked for, she's been voting against. Everything that we're in the streets for, AOC can't walk to Columbia University right now in New York City. Why you think they out in Midwest somewhere in Colorado? What are we talking about? So it's really just not making sense to me. And obviously this is spinoff. This is the squad 2.0 spinoff, right? The squad has been dismantled by AIPAC. We all saw that. We witnessed that. And now this is Bernie and AOC trying to save the day with the two-man team, and it's not going to work. Once again, they're going to lead us right into nothing. A bunch of empty promises and a bunch of great talking points. Bernie been saying the same goddamn talking points for the last 10 years. Let's be real. Y'all can run it back, and I promise you, you're going to hear the same thing 10 years ago. When are we going to wake up and say, you know what, this shit ain't working? And obviously, there's a lot of evidence to prove that. And I think it has to be said, a lot of labor leaders are not willing to put their necks out there like I am. I don't give a damn. I do it all the time, and I take whatever comes with it because I stand on it. And that's what I think other labor leaders need to do as well. They need to stop playing both sides of the fence, and then stop lying to the public. Let's stop ushering people into dead ends, and stop supporting these politicians that haven't given us anything in return as a working class.
Yeah. And Afeni, if you can add to that as well as to my previous question.
I ain't even gonna hold you. Previous question. Yeah, that's but I did.
Go ahead and answer this, and I'll ask my previous question afterwards. Go ahead.
But no, I really quickly before I get into that, I did want to tap in on something that you said earlier about how this is the last nonviolent option. I want to be very, very, very clear that there are varying levels of violence in this country. And a country that is predicated on militaristic and financial dominance will absolutely see a general strike that, to them, steals the labor that funds and props up this meat grinder that is the American empire. That will solicit a violent response. We just have to be honest about that. And like most Americans have watched the empire tear through a bunch of black and brown folks all outside of our borders. We don't even got to watch some blonde hair, blue eyed folks get blown up by our tax dollars too. So they know that underlying fear that you have, that military might be put back on you, that underlying anxiety that you feel is exactly the reason why this country very much needs to go. It's exactly why this country needs to be stopped. If we continue to prop up this entity, this authoritarian entity that has always existed this way, we are going to be the ones that feel the brunt of it regardless. So the country that you thought was going to come back, if you thought the Democrats were going to come back and save you, if you thought that we're in 2, 3, 4 years, we're going to wake up, boop, and everything's going to go back to normal, baby, that reality is gone. Because when the election first was going on, everything was happening, I kept asking myself, I kept saying, why the fuck would the people, it's astaghfirullah, it's not supposed to be cussing, it's Ramadan. Why would the people who have been running this experiment, why would the people who actually control this country tear up and accelerate their perfect experiment? People was barely making it. They wasn't really acting up too much. They was getting all the wealth sucked up to the top. Why, oh why, now are they going to blow this up? And it's because America is losing its global dominance. America is losing its global dominance. So even if you think that in 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, the Democrats might wake up and be like, oh my goodness, maybe we do actually care about oligarchy, baby. That's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. That was never the point of all of this. And at this point, I'm quite sure that the people who actually shaped the meaning and set the agenda of this society have made a calculated decision that they are willing to sacrifice way more of your lives than they were willing to sacrifice before in order to keep their authoritarianism going, in order to keep the oligarchy going, because there are too many of y'all that's thinking too hard about what this oligarchy means. So with that, they have to scare the folks that's not thinking about it. They got to scare them back into submission. Shit's about to get hot for real.
No, I think Afeni is spot on. I can't tell you guys the number of people that have contacted me privately. Not say privately, so I'm not gonna say their names on here, but contacted me privately and told me that they just left the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think, we've been talking about this for what seems like forever, but we've been talking about this for almost 4 years because we saw I'm like, dude, there's no getting out of anytime they would stop people from winning a primary, right? Like people who are running on a working class agenda. We know the game is up, right? Just a number of people. And I know that Bernie is having these massive, he's doing these rallies and people are like, look at all the people there, look at all the crowd and da-da-da. Right. But when it comes time to vote, is that crowd translating into votes? You see, I think we cannot allow ourselves to be fooled by crowd size because I've let that happen multiple times. Kamala Harris had big crowds. So, okay. I'm just to give you an example, but I think that we do have to remember we are the 99%. I think Occupy Wall Street really did have the right message that we are the 99%. And there's more of us than there are of them. But I think a lot of times people don't see this because you're on red team, you're on blue team. So as long as everybody's like fighting each other because they're on these red and blue teams, they're not focusing on that real oligarchy, that real threat. But I think that now, since this vote in the Senate, where 10 Democrats voted along with what Donald Trump wants, I think that seems to be the nail in the coffin for some people. And they're starting to see, like, what the heck are they doing? You know, they're going along with what the Republic. Again, if you just follow their money on open secrets, you'll understand why people are doing what they're doing and why they support the pieces of legislation that they support.
Yeah. Just to ask the first question that I asked of you, I'd like for you to chime in on, Afeni, is in regards to mutual aid and also bolstering the general strike. So if we can, we see,
You know, you're right about the mutual aid thing. You did say that. So here's the thing. In organizing, this quick organizing tutorial. Organizing, we go off the Zelensky model. Zelensky was a white man back in the 1960s that watched Black organizers organize, and he wrote it down, and then they gave him credit for the model, okay? In organizing, we say you need organized people and organized money. Organizing is building, well, if you're building power, you're building organized people and organized money. You're organizing people around shared values, and because we're in a capitalist society, we know money, you know, cash rules everything around me. We got to organize them resources. We have to push past the money thing, though. Because even these institutions that we're naming, like, oh, these folks have this and this and that, they have this strike fund and that strike fund. These institutions that have been served as nothing more than pillars to add a layer of respectability and humanity to this country and to this government are never, ever going to give their resources to real revolutionary causes. Because we have been, you see the Black church, that used to be a revolutionary institution. That was co-opted. Unions used to be revolutionary institutions. Those were co-opted. So if unions were actually able to give their money out, I'm pretty sure at this point, maybe some of those union leaders that are a little more radical would be open to doing that. But I'm sure there are so many legal ramifications and ways you got to flip around, get and reverse it. They can't give none of that money out. We have to get past that. It has to be about resources. It has to be about skill sets. It has to be about who actually knows how to grow what, who knows the cycle of the moon and the stars. If all this shit shuts down and we ain't got no electricity in this bitch, Canada, turn the lights off for real, turn his TV off. Who actually knows how to navigate this land without a map? Those are the things that we need to start mapping in our communities. We need to start putting safety plans together. Where am I going to meet my family members? If all of this right now shuts down, all the Wi-Fi go off, the GPS stop working, how am I going to get to my family members, number one? And where are we all meeting? How fast are we getting there after everything go down? Like, these are the conversations we need to start having. Mutual aid is more than just how much money can we get together? How much food can we get together? How much women's products and pads and things can we get together? Clothes and shoes. Yes, all that stuff is very, very important. But how much skill, how much strategy, how much of that can we get together? And how many relationships can we build outside of our immediate circles to make sure that when all of our comforts as Americans fail us, because they are going to fail us, how are we going to continue to push past and survive? Folks don't even know how to properly till soil. And that's not your fault. That's not your fault. People don't understand that daylight saving time is a little important if you want to farm. It's a little bit, you know what I'm saying? But that's not your fault. You have been conditioned to rely on the comforts that capitalism is giving you. You have been conditioned to rely on what is convenient for you. And that's the reason why all of y'all don't want to actually be in community with folks, because you don't want to be annoyed. Baby, community comes with irritation, babe. We're about to be irritated, hot, hungry, tired, all that. Learn how to do it now. Learn how to be uncomfortable now. Because as we get closer to that moment of real, like, explosion, which, like, honestly, as we get closer to that moment, we are not prepared. We are not prepared. So get yourself prepared immediately and learn how to shoot. But That's it.
Let me say something really quick. You know, a lot of people make fun of that one, you know, neighbor that has stocked up for years, and they say, you know, everybody's like, oh my God, that, you know, that person's kind of crazy. They think they need to prepare for end times or whatever. Might come a time when you need that neighbor.
It sure will.
Look, let me tell you something. That neighbor got a bunker in his basement. You don't even know about that. You might need them. Okay, get to know your neighbors.
For real. And Afeni said everything spot on. And how to do that in a non-violent way, right? Because yeah, if the power grid go out, 90% of the country probably gonna die in 2 days, in 48 hours, because of these very things. They don't know how to grow food. They don't know what to do without electricity. Do they got solar power generators? Do we have that at our disposal? No. These type of things and questions people need to ask themselves right now, because if you think that this government hasn't been testing us, if y'all haven't been paying attention to them LA fires, or them fires that just popped up in New York and Long Island, or these, you know, mystery thunderstorms with these blackouts and EMP lightings and stuff, and these drones in New Jersey, there's some weird things going on. Planes crashing. They are testing us. They are preparing us for something. So, yeah, pay attention, but not only pay attention, you better get ready or stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Look, like Kid Cabello said, keep your head on a swivel, right? You know? Girl, you too much. But one of the things, like for instance, and here's a kind of an example of mutual aid that you can do for your neighbors. Do you know how to filter water properly so that you can have clean drinking water, not just for drinking, for washing your clothes, for washing your hands and things like that? Do you know how to build a fire?
Because they just said that they just said they can't have shit in your water, y'all. They just said that the Supreme Court said Clean Water Act, the water ain't actually got to be clean. They said that.
Mm-hmm. The EPA is like, oh yeah, you guys can have a little bit more sewage in that water. Yeah, right. I covered that a couple weeks ago. You know, and it's like, do you know how to patch up clothes? Do you know how to sew on buttons? Do you know how to patch up holes in clothes? You know what I'm saying? People, do you know how to cook? Do you know how to prepare something simple?
I hope everybody knows how to cook.
Oh Lord, look, let me tell you, I went to culinary school, so I know exactly what to do. But not everybody does. So I'm like, look, I may need to have hold some cooking classes. But these are some of the things, because mutual aid isn't just materials, it's also lessons, teaching, education, right? Making you more self-sufficient so that you can make the community more self-sufficient if in case things pop off. Because once that you have that self-sufficiency, a general strike becomes more and more gravy. Because then you don't have to ride out with the corporations, you can ride out with your homies. And that's the point I think that's being said here, is that a lot of times what we do is we're so, okay, our muscles have atrophied because of capitalism. So when you have muscles that atrophy, what do you do to build it back up? You have to exercise, right? Like Sabby up in the gym, just freaking number fitness, right? We have to make ourselves fit for survival against this system, because they have made us atrophy. They have made it so that we're like a person in an iron lung, where our bodies don't move for decades. Can that person even lift up a pencil anymore? No, because they have not utilized those muscles. So these muscles of associating and getting to know your neighbors, these muscles of learning. Look, you guys got YouTube. It's right there. Capitalism will hang itself with the rope that it sells you with. You literally have lessons right there. Don't let it go to waste. You know what they said about the United Negro College Fund? A mind is a terrible thing to waste. Don't let your mind waste. That's the point. Anyway,
even when you look at the pandemic, if we all remember when the pandemic first like really kicked off, I remember people were running to the grocery stores to get water, to get toilet paper, to get like, at least here in Massachusetts, because we were shutting down, right? We were going under lockdown. That was just a test.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, and it's one of those things, again, like I said, that one neighbor that is always prepared. I think there's one probably in every neighborhood that has, like, my parents, for example, they never let things get low. So just think about that one neighbor who has everything or has like kind of what they need. What can you live with? What can you go without? And I would highly recommend to everybody to stop spending as much time on your electronic devices. This is a big one, right? So like Jaybe and I, you know, we're millennial. I guess you can call us old school nowadays, but we're millennials. We grew up without depending on electronic devices, right? Now, these things came out later on, but we grew up without them. We probably played video games like Nintendo and all that kind of stuff, but we grew up without it, right? So how many of you can go one day without your cell phone? How many of you can go even just a couple of hours before you go to bed or something like that? Like, how many of you can go to bed at night and not reach for your phone? It's things like that. Like, there may come a time, and they're already sending you the signs. There was the movie on Netflix called The World, The End of the World, not something about the world, that I think the Obamas made or whatever, where all the technology just stopped working and everybody started freaking out because they didn't know what to do without their technology.
Yeah, leave the world behind.
Leave the world behind. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, we need to spend less time like on the electronic devices, spend less time like on social media. Some people be on Twitter all day. I don't know. I really don't know how people do it. Like, it's really good to get away from that stuff and go out there and talk to people in person and go meet with people to organize in person and do these things in person, and don't spend so much time online. I'm trying to like give people a heads up about this kind of thing. Like, we are, and I see it too when I'm out and about. How is a group of people hanging out together and everybody's on their phone? I mean, I can go out to dinner and everybody at the table, I look across the table, everybody on the table's on their phone.
Yeah. Go touch grass.
Society, I mean, it's really, I say this all the time, you know, Amazon has a lot to do with that. Has a lot to do with how we adapted to this society. 10, 15 years ago, we weren't sitting home one-click buying all day on our phones. We weren't doing that. You know, we were getting up, going to our mom and pop stores, going to our local main streets, going to the shopping mall on the weekends. I used to get up. My mom used to get me up, you know, on Saturday, Sunday. We'd go to the mall, get our stuff for the week. That's what families used to do. Now, everybody's isolated. You don't know your neighbors. Like Afeni said, you don't know nobody's names. You don't rock with somebody. Y'all just staring at each other from across the street. I don't know if y'all been paying attention to these stories about there was a family in Detroit, I believe. A woman had her kids in the house for 4 years, right? I don't think I heard about it, but a woman had her kids locked up pretty much for 4 years, and she was just delivering food so that they could be in the house, but these kids weren't going to school. The neighbors didn't even know what their well-being was like. It's a big story right now in Detroit. It's people look into that. But yeah, a woman had her kids in the house for 4 years, and the neighbors didn't even bother to even ask or even bother to even intervene or anything like that. And there's another situation where a woman, I think, came out in the media. A woman had her son locked up for 30 years in a room. 30 years. He grown man, 30 something years old, and he weighs 100 and I think he was like 115 pounds when they found him. He's still alive, thank God, because he set the house on fire to finally get himself free. But this woman had this man for 30 years locked up in a 10 by 10 room, and no neighbor, nobody noticed anything. They said they saw him in the window, but that's it. These are the type of things that change society. Corporations like Amazon and other corporations, when you go in these cashless stores like Whole Foods or Home Depot or Walmart, and you're talking to well, not really talking to, you're interacting with a self checkout machine. They're trying to mold us into this. isolation, no human interaction, so that once again they can control everything in our lives. That's what these billionaires are trying to do.
No, and also I really want to tap in on something that I saw, because you brought that comment back right to the top of my brain. There was a comment in the chat that said that AI and robots are basically gonna like be the next way that billionaires are gonna try to control like the workforce. And that thought crossed my mind a couple of days ago, thinking about how, number one, right now the workers are like, our labor power is what keeps this country going. It's what keeps the global economy going. But if these billionaires are making a calculation that they can AI their way out of it, that they can replace people with robots, and if they can digitize money on top of that, so money is just an idea backed by confidence. The more and more we get into this digital money space, the more and more, like the more I see like this paper money being obsolete within our near future. And that is another way that they can consolidate their control over people. And like, that's why I'm like, talk about your crazy friend that be thinking way too hard about shit. I be in my house like Socrates, thinking way too hard, y'all. Like, dang.
No, you touched
in this bitch.
No, you touched a talking point that affects everybody, no matter what your political ideology is. Artificial intelligence, and I think somebody did tweet at me today about it. They were like, it's going to affect our children. I said, no. It's going to affect us in the next 5 years. 5 years max. AI is going to wipe out at least 50% of American jobs overnight. So it don't matter what side you're on. You're going to be affected by artificial intelligence. And who's invested the most into that? Elon Musk. Billionaires. They invest in all this, and they invest in no chump change, not a couple 100,000. They're investing millions and billions into artificial intelligence, self-driving cars, self-checkout. Yeah, Afeni said your credit score better be good, because they're going to ration off the food, and they're going to say you can't get this amount of groceries until your credit is up. They're going to wipe away cash. This is already happening in other countries. Why do you think they don't want us to look into other countries like China that has advanced technology? They got drones right now, door dashing food. You can order a food in China and get a drone is going to drop off your Burger King. So if you don't think America is trying to trend towards that, you are sadly mistaken. It's happening right in front of us.
Let me share this, because you just brought this up too, and I saw this earlier. Oh, it's happening now. Let's take a look. More Perfect Union says DoorDash and Klarna have signed a deal where customers can choose to pay for food deliveries and interest-free installments or deferred options aligned with payday schedules. They're trying to make you pay for the food that you eat in installments, like the food at the restaurant that you get from. It could be a Chick-fil-A, it could be a Culver's, it could be food from the mom and pop shop down the street that you got your meal. Now you have to pay for that in installments. What in the hell?
Yeah, you'll be in debt over lunch, because people are broke out here. People living check to check. They don't have money to even buy food anymore. I can't tell you how much I have a couple of kids, and to feed a family of 4, I'm talking $200 pretty much a day if I want to go out to eat. $50 a person, whether you're a kid or an adult. So the prices are going up, cost of living is going up, and people can't afford these things. They already cut in government spending, so guess what? Your SNAP benefits, your food benefits, your housing vouchers, man, people already working 2 or 3 jobs. Shit, if y'all don't think we need a general strike, it's crazy. It's wild to me. And people, that once again, America is very retroactive. Actually, it is retroactive. We don't do shit until after it happens, until we already shut down in the pandemic. They knew that damn pandemic was going to happen. They knew it. They orchestrated it. And then they said, you know what, go back to work. Economy. And we all went back to work. and all the protests started, the rates was going downhill, just like they wanted. They wanted us to be distracted. Why do you think they released the JFK files the same day they bombing Gaza? So that we can be distracted. Oh, we can talk about this over that. We gotta pay attention to everything, all surroundings.
And I'll say this as well too. It's really important, and that was something else I noticed too. Also with the JFK file release, people really have to understand the Republican Party isn't going to prevent these things from happening. What Chris just said, the Democratic Party isn't going to prevent those things from happening. That's the thing. Like, so this is why I'm trying to warn people. We are headed closer and closer to an all-out class war in this country. And when that really, truly happens, that's going to be bloody. I can see it now. I can really see it, because I think it's not going to get to some people. They're not really going to get it until they start to realize, wait a minute. I'm a Republican and they're screwing me over now, or I'm a Democrat and they're screwing me over now. And I think some people started to realize this right now with that Senate vote recently. But Medicaid, Medicare, that affects a lot of people, regardless what your political ideology is. I mean, messing with people's health care, all this kind of stuff. You guys see they keep giving more and more money to the billionaire class, giving them more and more tax breaks, all this type of stuff. So I'm telling people, when it does happen, I think it is going to be very, very bloody. And you have to ask yourself, will you be ready when that day comes? And there's no telling. Like Andrew Yang, I will say this, he tried to warn people years ago that AI was going to be an issue for the job force, that it was going to be an issue for employment. Elon Musk said this in an interview a couple of years ago that, yeah, AI is going to wipe out about, like, to what Chris said, like 50% of the jobs. And you're going to have a job, but it may not necessarily be what you want to do. Like, you're just going to have to learn to get used to it. Like these are billionaires telling you how you're going to have to live your life. And while everybody else has you distracted over who's this best candidate, et cetera, none of that is going to stop what is coming, because they all report to the billionaire class.
Yep. Absolutely. And so with that, because I know it's going to be a town hall, you guys are going to be speaking about this, but in your view, and starting with you, Afeni, what do you think are next steps in order to prepare for a general strike? How do we drum up more support? Because I'm going to be honest with you, I don't trust Sean Fain to endorse something like this. Because if he can't hold the line against both Democrats and Republicans, I don't trust him, right?
Well,
and so what is the next steps in order to drum up more support, in order to really get this going? And then as far as the timeline, we kind of have to hold it close to our chest because we don't want the corporations to prepare. You know what I mean? Because I know that a lot of times people are like, oh, we're going to do a strike on this day, and it's only going to be that day. And it's like, wait a minute. Why are you giving the game away to your enemy? Why are you giving the game away to your ops? Right? So how do we... I'm trying to be careful. You know what I mean? But
so
please.
I have a couple of different answers. Some of them y'all will like, some of them y'all won't. I think, just to get the answer that y'all really not gonna like out the way first, we gonna have to talk to people that are ideologically kind of spent, right? And while yes, we know what we're building towards, we know what we're for, we know that at the end of the day, we're doing a general strike for the intention of building a society that is actually equitable, that is, giving all the workers the things that they need, that actually reflects the power dynamic that exists in this country. There will be many folks who will see this as a short-sighted thing. And I think as we continue to build out and build trust, a part of relationship building that I found as an organizer is, number one, power builds at the speed of relationships, and relationships move at the speed of trust. The reason why many folks don't do the thing is because they don't actually trust themselves and they don't trust others. We have to move at the speed of where people are actually moving, and we have to meet people in person. I'm being so serious. Like, if we are relying on Zoom meetings, for example, say you're in your locality and you've met up with some people, you've gotten some folks in the room, and you're like, all right, well, we're gonna meet on Zoom. Well, if all this shit cut off, then what? And also, if you're only meeting people online and you're not building real sustainable relationships in person in your local communities, that's not real safety. That's not real life. Nope. I think we've gotten very comfortable building community online because that is the social square that we have been given. But at this point and at this time, all of these platforms, this Wi-Fi, this AWS that we on, is all on. This is all they shit. They stuff. Dang, this is all they stuff. You know what I'm saying? So we have to build institutions and build things that we can rely on. And that only happens in person. So as you are, and I also say this, some of the next steps are folks that are not super politicized. Some of the next steps are people that are not in a political organization or in a space where there is constant political analysis being built. You need to find the space, even if it's a reformist, I'm trying to stop cursing. Even if it's a reformist bad space of like Young Democrats, something. Go to those people and meet them, because I'm sure they know a couple crazy cousins they don't want to talk to. And those are the folks you need to be tapping in with. And I promise you, them folks that are kind of reformists, not sure if they with it, once they see what's going on, they gonna come and check for you, like, oh, well, we heard that you was planning for this and this and that. And now that's how you're building the movement. But people need to see it. And I think that because so many of us have already been in movement spaces, we've already done protests, we've already done things, like, for us, an arc of escalation right now, like, we're ready to jump off the porch with it. Some folks are still in the kitchen, still at the kitchen table, trying to figure it out. They still trying to figure out if a Democrat will show up for them or not. Mm-hmm. And it's simply not given that, But we have to be patient with our folks. That's our next steps. I really have to hop off though, because I have to go do a meeting. I'm so sorry, but it was so nice to be here with y'all. I love y'all so much.
Love you too.
Love you too, Afeni. So good to see you. Good to see you. All right. Take care.
I want to piggyback off of that. That was amazing. Yeah, she everything she said spot on again. Agree 100%. You got to meet people where they at. That's how we beat Amazon. We was out there over 300 plus days. No shortcuts. That's not how you get it done with shortcuts. You got to meet people where they at, and where they at is at work. And I'll add a step further to what she's saying about meeting people where they at. And for those who are not there yet, ideologically, get your passport, leave the country. 70% of Americans don't have a passport. I was one of them 2 years ago. But when we won the union, I've been able to travel the world, go visit other countries, some really radical countries, socialists, communists, all of that. I've been to a lot of countries, and one in particular was Cuba. I'm going back to Cuba this year. That definitely will change. It will change anybody's perspective on American politics if you leave this country and go talk to other people who have Medicare for all, who have a country with 0% crime rate, who have a country with 0% homelessness, who has a country with 90% union density. When you leave this country, go to Canada and talk about healthcare in Canada. It's right over the border. Go to Mexico. Go to South Latin America. We always talking about going to the islands for vacation. People only go as far as the Caribbeans or as far as the resorts, but actually go in town. Actually go meet another working class citizen of that country and talk about their livelihoods. And you'll see it's night and day. 70% of Americans, once again, don't have a passport. They don't know the difference. That's why they feel as if America's the greatest country on earth. But when I leave the country, it's a whole nother perspective. They're looking at us like, what the hell are we doing over there? Why haven't y'all called the general strike? And we don't see it. The media, the propaganda, they do an excellent job of keeping us separated and divided. If everybody paid attention to what they did, if all these unions, all these major unions, at least 60-something major unions in this country, if all of them took a one page out of what they did in France 2 years ago, when they shut down the whole country and brought millions of people out, you know what they did? The unions cut off the power of the politicians, and they cut off the sanitation of the politicians. And they got whatever they did, they won it in 2 days. And it was only over raising the retirement age 2 years. And they went on a general strike with the unions leading it. We don't have that militancy in this country for good reason, because these unions are afraid to go to communist countries, are afraid to build relationships, international relationships with communist unions or socialist unions. They don't want us to even see this shit. I'm telling you that right now. You're Sean Fain, he ain't it. I'm telling you, if that was the case, he wouldn't have canceled Cordell West for Joe Biden last year.
Wow.
He wouldn't have did that. And I know that for a fact, straight from the horse's mouth. So he's going to do the same thing Bernie and AOC is doing right now. He's going to call a general strike. Yeah, general strike 2028. I already told y'all, less than 6% private sector, less than 10% public sector. So even if all the unions went on a general strike, who are we talking to? That's a bubble. It wouldn't even do much, because we don't have enough union membership in this country. They're not organizing. They're organizing their members. They're fighting for their contracts. They're going on strike for their people. But as far as including more people into the labor movement, they've been failing for decades. That's why our victory was so monumental, because it hasn't been done before. Amazon was around for 30 years. If you think that these unions didn't try before me, I only been around 5 years. I've been working at Amazon since 2015, over a decade. So if you don't think that these unions have been trying, they've been trying, and y'all haven't been hearing about it, or they've been failing miserably. We have to change course. And I advise everybody to not only, talk to your neighbors and talk to your community, get involved, but get your passport, go visit some of these other countries, go really learn about their politics and their policies. You'll see that AOC, go to Sweden. They got 30 AOCs on their board. And I'm talking about 25-year-old politicians, fresh out of college. Why we don't put people in office our age or a little bit younger? We have this mindset that it has to be these dinosaurs. But these dinosaurs are disconnected because they don't experience what young people go through. They haven't done that in a very long time. So we have to change course, and we really have to leave the two-party system, if you ask me.
One thing I would encourage people to do is, as you get your passports, during an election season in Venezuela, go and observe their elections. Go and observe the elections in Cuba. If you can make it to the DPRK, aka North Korea, go observe their elections. Yes, they have elections. Go observe. Go see how they do things. Go see their unionization that goes on in these countries. Go see how, the unionization in China if you can. China's like, hey, we want y'all to come. China's like, come on in. Go ahead and visit. Right? Go talk to Danny Haifong, right? Because he'll tell, and if you want to, he'll tell you exactly how to get over there, right? Yeah. But that's the thing, right? And one thing I want to highlight too is about getting to know your neighbors. On Sunday, I was with the Real Orlando Mutual Aid Organization. REAL is an acronym for Revolutionary Education Action League. They're in Orlando. They'll be joining us next week on this very program to talk about their mutual aid organizing. I can tell you this. Those people, and by the way, this is my neighborhood they're organizing in. The people in my neighborhood know who they are. They know when REAL comes out, oh, all right, it's legit. Because we even had a young man go, yeah, y'all legit because you guys are out here consistently. You're asking us what we need. And then the next time y'all come around, y'all got exactly what we need. You guys are actually out here for us. And I wish I would have recorded that conversation. But the thing is, it's like next time I'm out there, that young man sees my face, he'll know, all right, he's part of the community. He's trying to do, what we need. But at the same time, if things pop off, if I need a place to go, or if I need some help, and that same young man sees me, guess what? Solidarity.
Mm-hmm.
There's a thing called, I think it's called warm, communication or warm connections. These things are meeting in person, talking to other human beings. We got to take it back to the way we used to do it, where we actually went to because we don't have any third spaces no more. That's gone. But if we come together physically, right? If you got to wear a mask, fine, cool, whatever. But come together physically to get together and interact with one another. That's that warm communication. That builds those bonds. And that builds community, man. And, I just want to, also thank you, Chris, for the work that you're doing and for being as vigilant as you are in pushing for a better system for workers. Because a lot of times, a lot of these people, they get in these unions and they get in cahoots with the corporations. And next thing you know, the union leaders, they have their head in the clouds. But you said what you did was the equivalent of, all right, we're going to ask for these people we're going to make sure we demand these people for food. All right, I'm the rep. Let me go talk to the people. Then they're like, hey, come on, man. Just sit down here, eat a little bit, and chill out with us. And you're like, nah, I'm trying to get food, not just for me, but for everybody else. And if you're not going to feed everybody else but just me, then I'm going back out there to be with the people. And so you resisted that temptation because I'm going to be honest with you. Hollywood, the Democratic Party, they tried to tempt you and you said, nope. And so I just want to give you your flowers on that one too.
No, I think it was also kind of revealing too, like during when Chris was still fighting for unionization of Amazon. Let's not forget remember AOC told Chris that she would be there to help and then she didn't show up and that really kind of blew up, right? And then after, Chris and them won, AOC and Bernie showed up or what. But what I think the lesson that should have taught people is that a lot of these people that are activists first or, claim to be activists first, once they go into politics, it's now politics first. And you really have to, I really do believe, I used to think that was the right way to go, activists go into politics. But what I've seen, especially with like Cori Bush, for example, activists during the Ferguson movements, heavily organized against police brutality. The reality is once they go to DC, now it's like they're splitting their time between two different states or two different cities, right? So now it's like that is their job. And the organizing and all that kind of stuff may come afterwards. And that's even if Democrat leadership wants them to do it. So looking back on things, I think if you're an activist or organizer, I think it's better that you don't get into politics and you continue that work on the grassroots. Just my opinion.
1,000%. Yeah, I mean, I could tell y'all this, a lot of misinformation out there. A lot of rumors, a lot of fake news, a lot of lies, a lot of bullshit about myself, about my union. And you know, I always took the high road. I don't really defend myself. I play around with the trolls on Twitter. I like doing that here and there. But other than that, I let the work speak for itself. You know, people believe that I've been co-opted. They're just ridiculous. You know, first of all, you're not going to find that I'm a registered Democrat anywhere. Never voted for them. Secondly, I've been very vocal, about calling, whether it's politician, whether it's a union leader, you name it. I've been very vocal about it. And even my stance on certain things that get you canceled, like Palestine, for example. I was one of the first union leaders in this country to speak on it. Literally, I was one of them. And when I did that, I lost tens of thousands of followers. I had about 190K before October 7th, and was trending upwards because, you know, nothing was going on or whatever. But then when I talked about Palestine overnight, 10K going on Twitter, another 5 or 6 going on IG, people in my DMs, oh, Chris, I supported you for Amazon, but this is not it. This is where I draw the line. Trust me, I was canceled overnight, not only by supporters on the so-called left, but how much do you know how many opportunities? People don't have no idea how many opportunities I lost. And not even myself, my union was very vocal. We put out a statement publicly. We lost so many opportunities. Why do you think we were snubbed from the Oscar? We got shortlisted for the Oscar. They don't even want our film out there right now as we speak. We have a film that made it to the Oscar shortlist independently, and we don't get no distribution, just like the Palestinian film No Other Land. We were in the same film festivals. I met those directors from Palestine and Israel. I met both of them on several different occasions across the world, different film festivals. We were winning awards together. We were traveling together in certain film festivals, and we both independently released in America. And both of us independently can't get no distribution in America. Why is that? Because they don't want us to come together. They don't want us to see how it is to actually beat these corporations. They want to keep that away from y'all. So I encourage you not only to get involved with any movement you feel comfortable with, but pay attention and watch these films like No Other Land or like Union, that's going to show you how we beat Amazon and how we resist our opposers, our opposition. And also, I want to shout out real quick all the teachers who have invited me to their classrooms this past year. That's the best thing I've ever done throughout my entire journey, was being able to walk into an elementary school and meet 200 10-year-old kids that's telling me that Jeff Bezos is a bad man. Because that's what I'm fighting for, is to educate the youth and for the younger generation to be prepared as they enter the workforce. You know, for my children who is 12, my twins who are 12 years old, who are going to be in high school, they're going to know what it is to work at Amazon. They're going to know why Jeff Bezos is a bad person, why Elon Musk is a bad person at a very young age. Instead of listening to firefighters and police officers on career day, they got labor leaders like me that are willing to walk in the classroom now. And I'm not the only one that should be doing that. Other labor leaders in this country should be doing that. Teachers need to add it to our curriculum. We need to teach people the real history that's being whitewashed, that's going to be erased, because that's what they're trying to do as well. Erase our history, keep us silent, keep us censored, and keep us distracted and divided.
Thank you so very much for that. And if you can let people know where they can find you and what you have coming up.
Absolutely. At @shut_down Amazon on Twitter. My name, Chris Smalls, on Instagram. Follow U.S. Labor Party. I soft launched that as well. I'll talk about that more on a later date, but definitely if you're paying attention to what I'm doing, you'll see for the last few months I've been doing these town halls, but also talking about general strike. I'm talking about revitalizing, because there used to be a U.S. Labor Party in America. Believe it or not, 1970s, It dissolved. We got to bring that back. And I'm trying to hold unions accountable and hold people accountable, and hopefully give us another option in 2028 as a national party. Very well, much overdue. And I can tell you now, the policies, I just released the policies on my Instagram. Y'all can check them out. I can tell you now, a lot of these countries that I was talking about that I visited and that I have relationships with, I have those policies and incorporated in this party that I'm launching. And I hope that people understand that it's not to step on other third parties. It's to give American people more options, because that's what we need. We need more options.
All right. Thank you so very much for joining. It was a privilege once again to have you. And look, I cannot wait for your town hall with Afeni. And so I already put the links in the description as well as in the chat. So good to see you once again.
You too. You too. Thank you. Talk soon, y'all. Be safe, y'all. Take care. Solidarity.
Take care. Solidarity. All right, everybody. Sabs, what do you think?
I think it's just great. Again, I think Chris and Afeni are doing great stuff. You know what I mean? And I think that people look at the labor organizing and, you know, just because you don't see someone, this is another thing. Like Chris hasn't been, you know, on, what's that guy's name? I can't remember. You guys know these late night talk show hosts, but you know, like after Amazon won, they were bringing him on to like the late night talk show hosts and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And people haven't seen him, you know, in those spaces for a bit. But Chris has been working, like him and Afeni and doing all this types of stuff. These are the things that need to get done. And it's not just him. Like you pulled it up. There are a number of people that have been involved participating in this. And again, the Labor Party, I think it's a great idea, because the reality is, yeah, people do need more options. And I just think this is the direction that we've been kind of like discussing for years, like Jaybe, right? Like this is what we've been kind of trying to tell people, that like, and like part of me is kind of like, it's wrong, like what Chuck Schumer did, but part of me is kind of glad that he did it so that people can see. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's kind of like you know that this dude is cheating on his girl, but at the same time she don't believe you. So then you're kind of glad that she caught him in the bed with another girl. So now that she could actually leave his ass, and now it's just like, well, good. Come on, girl, let's go. You know, you saw the evidence for yourself. Now let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like that. So, yeah. Before we get into the comment, some of the chat, to get into super chats and things like that, what do you have coming up for your show this evening?
Just covering news stories, and we'll probably do a short call in after the show tonight.
All right, cool. Before we get into the chat, I just want to make an announcement. Okay. So if you are in the Central Florida area, if you're in the Orlando area, I want to direct your attention to a rally that's going to be happening this Saturday. It's going to be an emergency protest. It's going to be led by the Florida Palestine Network. It's Stop the Genocide on Saturday, March 22nd at Orlando City Hall at 4 p.m. They're talking about an arms embargo now. So if you are in the Central Florida area, pull up, come through, because they are actually protesting against the genocide that Donald Trump is now spearheading in this country. So if you guys would like to, I will also put the link to the Instagram post in the chat as well for you guys. Okay. So with that being said, let's go to the comments on Rockfin first. And I have to be very fast because Sabby has a heart out. So I had to make sure I get to it. So thank you for the tip on Rockfin. Roger, he says, withholding our labor is the ultimate power. I'd argue owning our labor is the ultimate power. I've expressed the Sab already, but I would be with a gun strike, depending or the general strike, I'm sorry, depending on if it's done the right way. A general strike is only effective when it is sustained. We had a general strike by accident called the COVID shutdown that stopped the entire economy, and the leverage went back to the workers. Where the boss class has to offer so much to get us back in the office, pacemakers, hearts for organs, transplants, However, my concern is that what happens when parts of life-saving machines for things like dialysis, pacemakers, hearts for transplant, organ recipients, as well as other organs and life-saving medicine is not being shipped? If you say it's only going to be a day, then not as many people would die, but that strike won't be effective. If it is a sustained strike, it will be effective, but the vulnerable will die. You already know where I'm at when it comes to workers. I am past union. I'm on to getting initiatives passed that would allow workers to own companies as cooperatives. My plan, as you know, is running citizen ballot amendments to the transition us there. What I'm asking you all is, how do you do an effective general strike without hurting the vulnerable in society? I should have asked this earlier, but I didn't take a look.
Well, because the general strike, I think they've already, discussed this. A general strike doesn't mean that you shut down everything. Like, I think that's what people may not realize that, but it doesn't mean that you shut down everything. Like, Chris and Afeni were talking about withholding your labor, right? Yeah. And you don't have to withhold, like, everybody doesn't have to say, hey, I'm not going to work today. It doesn't have to be that to shut things down. Yeah. So I just think, I think it might be important to, I don't know if Roger saw this, but Roger, whenever you have time, it might be important to watch the General Strike Summit that we hosted, because there were a number of people that we had that discussion. They came on and talked about this. So it might be good to watch that.
Yeah, and you can also do strategic points in certain industries in order to be able to, kind of do like a cardiac arrest to the corporations without harming the workers. But of course, there's many things we can talk about. Let me get to these ones in the chat. CEB Applejack, they were just on earlier today, said this has been what we have been calling for ever since we saw Bernie bend the knee. We must shut down this country and take our nation back. Thank you so much for that. Also, to Justin, says we need a general strike before AI and robots are able to do all of our jobs. It will lose its power if we wait too long. General strike on election day with a strong get out the vote for green and independent candidates. Thank you to Mark Pugsley, says I've been saying general strike since 2011. Good to see you again, Afeni. There's some other chats, but let me see here. Mr. Chris Smalls, I see you in Cuba doing your thing, Playboy. Workers need to unite and take what's ours, as well as reparations, Black power, y'all. And then Chris C says the army must become one with the people so that they can see it as their own army. Such an army will be invincible. That's from Chairman Mao. Been educating myself more. Props, Jaybe, Sabby, Afeni, Chris, and RBN fam. Thank you so very much for that. And just as an aside, JB, do you clean your chicken with lemon? No, I use white distilled vinegar with water. Because I use my lemon for my tea. So white distilled vinegar. And then also Nick was in the chat, giving props. So good to see Nick in the chat as well, saying that was banger stream. My beautiful brothers and sisters, as well as Rome was also in the chat saying, so great to see these beautiful faces. So thank you so very much for that. There's other chats that I wish I can get to, but I can't. So with that being said, I don't want to take too much time because I know Sabby is being very generous for their time. Thank you so very much to everybody for joining in as well. And like I said, for me, as far as the fundraising that I did for the Seattle trip, since I wasn't able to go, since I was in the hospital, then if you would like to get your money back, then you guys can always email me. It's all in the my description of my videos and my channel. If you guys would like to, it's going to be difficult if you are anonymous, because I don't know who you are. But, if you are, somebody who actually donated, just let me know. And then I'll make sure to get you your money back. Do whatever means that we can. All right. So thank you so very much to everybody for that. And Sabs, any last words?
Just have a great weekend.
All right. We're going to end with a shout out to patrons. Thank you so very much to everybody. Water your plants, water yourselves, do all the things if you got them. And solidarity with the workers. All right. Take care, everybody.